Exxon-Mobil, one of the most profitable companies in the world that regularly pays no U.S. income tax, had a pretty horrible tar sands oil spill in Arkansas last month. Most people have heard bits and pieces of the story, but here's what you probably haven't heard from the corporate media. First off, you got a glimpse of the pipeline rupture and spill because of citizen bloggers and journalists like Drew Barnes, who posted this on YouTube. But you haven't seen much coverage from the air of this, have you? That's because just like with the BP Halliburton blowout in the Gulf, the FAA imposed a no-fly zone over the oil spill. You are not allowed to see what's going on. Exxon-Mobil has even hired local police for security, and they're doing a pretty good job of keeping reporters away, according to Mother Jones reporting, that documented numerous instances of people being threatened with arrest for just trying to ask questions or take pictures on site. Second, with all the money and profits from that oil pipeline, Exxon-Mobil doesn't have to pay into the federal fund to clean up oil disasters, including this one. Why? Because this stuff isn't oil. It's stuff that the press refers to as tar sands oil from Canada, but it's actually legally known as diluted, in the United States we call it bitumen, in Britain bitumen. And according to a 1980 law pushed through and passed by our bought-off Congress, that stuff that comes from Canada, the diluted bitumen, not being oil, isn't subject to the tiny taxes that are imposed on regular oil to pay into a fund to help cover the costs of spills. Another reason why the diluted bitumen, aka tar sands oil, that'll be coming down the Keystone XL pipeline, will be even more profitable for the big companies who plan to refine it on the Texas coast and then ship that refined diesel and gasoline that they extract from it to England, Mexico, Brazil, and China, and other places. We, by the way, will get to keep all the poisons left over from the refining process, and we get to pay for all the cancers from them. I expect Cancer Alley down south to grow substantially. Finally, to add insult to industry, or to injury, we get one of the more heavily oil industry funded members of Congress, Oklahoma Republican Congressman Mark Wayne Mullen, who recently said this to us.
I think Exxon should be actually patted on the back for the way they handled this. Yes, it was horrible. Yes, we don't like to see it, but they handled it. They did a great job.
And this clueless congressional newbie repeats the lie that the Keystone Pipeline, carrying more of this tar sands oil to the Gulf Coast, is, when it's finished, it'll reduce our dependence on Middle Eastern oil. Trying to tie the wonders of Exxon-Mobil to the bombing in Boston, this genius said, I mean, would we rather buy oil from the Middle East that sponsors the acts like we see at the marathon that we saw just yesterday? I guess the congressman got out ahead of John King and CNN in knowing who blew up the pressure cookers in Boston. But aside from that stupidity, the pipeline will not reduce our dependence on foreign oil a bit, because all that slurry from Canada is going to very, very profitable refineries on the Gulf Coast, where they can then refine and export the refined gas and diesel overseas. Last year, this nation's #1 export was not TVs or jeans or computers. We invented all those things, but we don't make them here anymore. It was gasoline and diesel fuel. Yep, the big oil companies are exporting gas and diesel from the U.S. like crazy, keeping the prices for us here high and the profits for them even higher. And now they want to export even more. Oh, and by the way, let us keep the cancers and the oil spill risks and all that stuff coming out of the smokestacks. We've been scammed. From that 1980 law exempting the oil companies from paying into cleanup funds for Canadian tar sands oil, to blocking our press from covering their spills, to our members of Congress being bought and sold, we've been scammed. And all of this to keep alive a 19th century fuel system that's destroying our planet. It's time to leave behind fossil fuels altogether. Portugal just produced 70% of all their power needs from renewables. we can do that too. We are still the nation that put a man on the moon, that invented the transistor and the integrated circuit, that led the world for centuries. If we can just get the bought and paid for politicians out of the way and get our press to actually cover the horrors of tar sands oil and the reality of climate change, we just may be able to once again have that JFK vision of the city on the hill. We should even take a lesson from the dozens of nations that have nationalized their oil and, like Norway, use the money to send their kids to college. It's time to step up and speak out.